when people ask me who's going to be in the main event, I thought, well, my gut tells me it's going to be Undertaker and Dave Batista. And WWE decided otherwise. They decided to put Michaels and Cena in the main event because Michaels always steals the show. And Big Dave said, you know what? We're going to steal the show at WrestleMania.
Right.
We are going to have the Randy Savage-Ricky Steamboat match for WrestleMania this year. And I heard that, and I let out a hearty laugh.
Now, Nails, I know you're certainly not a historical wrestling fan, but Savage Steamboat is one of the top 5 matches in Mania history.
Yes.
It's great, and everyone knows it.
It was a fantastic match. And when Big Dave said this, now, I will say in my own defense, Big Dave has been horrible lately.
Yeah, you were not a fool to laugh at him.
Big Dave
is that just a lately thing? Because you guys,
by lately meaning about 2006 forward.
Yes. What happened was he's had a history of tricep tears. I know you'd be surprised seeing a man that large constantly tearing muscles, but he has. And he tore his triceps, I believe, 3 times. And the doctor said, 1 more and you're done. So then he tore it a 4th time, and he managed to come back. But ever since coming back, he has been so gun-shy, so horrible. He has these matches. He had a match with Kane a few weeks back that we watched and were just in awe that a match could be so fucking horrible. And it was on SmackDown in front of 5 million people. So, long story short, when he said he would steal this show, I thought, okay, you've got a ladder match, which is going to be insane. You've got Michaels and Cena, which is going to be awesome. And Dave does not have a track record for great matches over about the last year and a half. Well, these 2 fucking guys put on a great match. If you want to argue that it was the best match on the show, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, really?
I'm fine with that.
I don't know that I would even disagree.
I think that there were 3 great matches on the show. There was the ladder match, which was excellent. There was the main event, which was excellent. And there was the Undertaker-Dave match, which was excellent. And really, whichever one you want to argue was the best match, I say, go to
You're right. Whichever one you pick, you're right.
Yeah, I will not laugh at anybody who thought that was the best match on the show. So let's look at this match, or this show, match by match, and get everybody's comments on it. It was a big show. They claimed 80,100 and something people in the building, and may have been a legit number. If not, it was inflated only slightly, but there was a shitload of people there.
It was crowded.
And I think the thing that really hit me was they had the giant screen there, and there were people wrapped around the back behind the screen. There were so many people in this building, they were behind the screen.
Yes.
They were watching a backward screen.
Yeah.
Yes, we were watching the entrance, and when they zoomed out of the stage, there was this enormous screen and this tiny little human running around the bottom of the screen. I was like, who is that? That's Dave Batista down there. Good God, this screen's huge. And then I realized, yes, it was all the people were behind this huge screen. So, yes, they drew.
And I think that one thing that should be noted is they paid for those shitty seats.
Yeah.
This was not papered. They paid to sit in the worst seats I've ever seen at a live sporting event, except for the one that I got one time. I believe
behind a pole once.
I was once placed by WWE. My comp tickets were behind a pole, and I could not actually see the ring. But this was just about as bad. So anyway, it was a giant, like an IMAX-sized screen and a humongous ramp, and it was quite the deal. So it opened up with a flashback to WrestleMania 3 with all the people there, and then Vince introduced the show, which apparently was a big story today because Shane McMahon wanted to play the Vince McMahon role of opening up the show like Vince did at WrestleMania 3, and his own sister argued against it, and thus he didn't get the job.
It's going to be fun when Vince dies.
Oh, God. So actually Vince did, but it may have been actually the Vince from '83 that did it because we didn't actually see Vince McMahon. But Aretha Franklin came out and sang America the Beautiful, and God bless the woman.
She looks like she ate Yokozuna.
She's put on a pound or two since 1987, and she did a hell of a performance, all things considered. But, yeah, God bless her, but everybody that I was watching the pay-per-view with, that's all anybody could talk about. Look at how huge Aretha Franklin is. But what can you do?
They got her into Ford Field.
And you know what? In the old days, you were considered beautiful if you're that large, because that meant you could afford to eat.
That's true.
And this woman could afford to eat. She's eating like a queen. So the first match on the show was, in fact, the Money in the Bank match. And we had Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, CM Punk, Booker, Edge, Orton, Finlay, and Kennedy. and they just had a crazy ladder match.
They all killed each other.
Yeah.
There's the review.
I think the story is that everybody killed themselves, and it was a terrifying match. It was certainly not an all-time classic that I think that they were expecting, and not the best ladder match I've ever seen. But as far as just doing crazy things, this was up there with some of the classic ladder matches. I think obviously the big spot was they set up a ladder between the apron and the dasher boards, and they put Edge on it. And then Jeff Hardy climbed up to about the second rung from the top of a ladder.
In the ring.
And he just kind of, I guess it was supposed to be a leg drop, but he jumped off and sat on Edge, and he hit him so hard the ladder broke.
Shattered in two.
And they were both taken away on stretchers, and I believe Edge is fine. I have heard nothing otherwise, and I've tried to find out, and if we hear anything during the show, I'll let everybody know. But that looked horribly uncomfortable. And that was a deal there, and the rest of the stuff was just guys killing each other, taking horrible, scary bumps, and
Edge pitching a ladder into Punk's face.
Yep, Punk got a ladder to the face. The midget took the the rolling senton off the ladder and was.
I thought I saw death.
I
really did. I thought, holy shit.
I was looking at that saying that guy's got to weigh about 60 pounds. He cannot possibly survive this.
When the midget started climbing the ladder. Because the gimmick was that Finlay hurt his leg and he couldn't climb, so his midget was going to climb for him. And the midget goes up there and Kennedy stops him. And I thought, this explains what we saw on SmackDown. The midget gave Kennedy a senton.
Yes.
So Kennedy is going to give the midget a senton. And I thought, okay. But then he hoisted him up for the fireman's carry roll. And I thought, please don't do this off the ladder. And he crushed this midget. Just crushed this midget. And the midget actually was walking around and such afterwards, so I guess he ended up fine, unless all his ribs broke and he's just a tough bastard.
Pervious to pain.
But that was horrifying.
You know what? It just occurred to me. I can't believe they didn't mention this in the show. This is the 20-year anniversary of King Kong Bundy slamming Little Beaver.
Well, they made no mention of that whatsoever.
Everyone forgot about that. But
yes.
this was the flashback, whether intentional or not.
So after all these wacky spots, Kennedy ended up climbing up and grabbing the briefcase. Actually, pretty much came down to Kennedy and Punk, which I had figured were the two favorites. And Kennedy ended up getting getting the briefcase. He is the new Mr. Money in the Bank, so he can get a title shot at any point during the year for any champion, and that's that.
I was going to ask, why is that significant? But now I know.
Why did he get the briefcase? Yes, the briefcase guarantees him a title shot, and
whenever he wants for a year.
It's kind of funny because it's almost stupid because you would think, well, wouldn't he get his title shot in the main event at Ford Field?
After John Cena has wrestled for a half hour?
What the hell's he waiting for? But
yeah. I mean, is this a guy that they would put a title on at any point?
They might, but it's a ways down the road.
Any point in 2007, I would bet not. Now, that being said, the last two guys to win this have gone on to win the championship.
But I mean,
and when Edge won it, I would not have thought he'd be a guy to do it.
He has till WrestleMania 2008.
He does have 12 months.
And by that time, they may get him in the position where it'll mean something if he gets a title shot. But I guess we'll see. Nails, what'd you think of that insanity?
I was scared for everybody. I really was. I don't like watching those matches.
Yeah.
And then they tried to kill a midget, and I said, okay, I'm done with it.
Did you have to actually leave the room?
No, I didn't.
I could not.
I have a computer in front of me, so I can, surf.
I see. Yes, I could not tear myself away, but I really just wanted it to be over without anyone dying.
I always think that during these matches.
This even more than usual, though. The Jeff Hardy and Edge thing through the ladder. Outside of Foley going off the cage, this may have been the stupidest thing I've ever seen a wrestler do.
I can't say that. I can't say that because I've seen some stupid. Remember when Jeff got speared off the cables and AJ took that stupid fucking flip bump off
AJ's flip
Ultimate
bump
X?
was also historically stupid.
Yes, those are things.
This is one. The thing is, if everything goes right on the flip bump, then AJ's fine. If it goes wrong, he's dead.
Yes.
If everything goes right for Jeff Hardy and Edge in this stupid ladder spot, they still get fucked up.
Well, see, I didn't look at it that way because, the idea is the ladder breaks, and that's just like going through a table. It breaks your fall. I think that this, personally, I think this looked way worse than it actually was.
I certainly hope so.
But yeah, that should tell you something that Nails is a giant MMA fan, and
it was too brutal for him.
This match was too brutal for him.
Yes.
And I don't blame you. So. And then speaking of brutality, and actually, this was not the worst match on the show, believe it or not. The Great Khali faced Kane.
Well, Well, if you're counting the women's matches, that's not really fair.
Well, I am, yes.
We are.
Aside from the women's match, this next one was the worst match on the show.
This was very bad. It was.
Wasn't that bad.
But what did you expect?
I expected worse, to be honest with you. I gave this 1 star. Believe it or not.
This was fine, maybe too high praise, but it was there.
Yeah, they did see, here's what I think, Vince. I think you had such low expectations that you're actually overrating it, and I think I am too, but 1 star is as high as I'm going as far as overrating it. I cannot call this fine. This was terrible, and it had a body slam, so that's a star right there. And they did a bunch of stuff, and obviously the body slam was the flashback to Hogan and Andre, and Khali kicked out, and then he just pinned Kane clean with the tree slam, so I guess Kane will be getting his knee surgery or whatever. And then Khali choked him to death with a sodomy hook afterwards, and that was that. I have seen worse.
I was trying to figure out what that thing was called to put it in the review, the sodomy hook.
Well,
it's kind of a long story. That's Brian's name for it. Kane has never used that term specifically.
Let me explain this. Kane was in a movie, and apparently he hooked a lot of people with a meat hook or something like that.
He killed them with a hook.
See No Evil, it was called.
Okay.
So a couple of weeks ago, Kane cut a promo on the Great Khali, and he just inexplicably held up this hook. It just became part of his gimmick for no reason. The movie's been out for like a year and a half or a year or something like that, and he just introduces this hook. And he held the hook up, and he looked at it, and he goes, "I'm going to go all the way." And I thought, my God, he's going to stick that hook up his ass. It's a sodomy hook. So that's the name that I gave it. And I can't think of any other good reason for what the fuck this thing's for. So anyway, that's the whole deal there.
That's the story of Kane and the sodomy hook.
Yeah, the sodomy hook. It makes sense, you know. I want to patent that like the Teal Day Bang. I want everybody to know that's a sodomy hook. What else could it possibly be used for?
Murder.
Anyway, Crime Time has been found. They were backstage with the ECW chicks, and they were dancing, and Eugene walked up, and he had no idea what to do until he saw Moolah and Mae Young. I believe 82 and 83 respectively, or something like that.
Okay, those are the old ladies I saw.
Yes.
Yes, those
former wrestlers back in,
the Stone Age.
The 50s.
The Paleolithic.
So then Slick showed up, the Doctor of Style, and then a gigantic dance party broke out with IRS, Mean Gene, Jimmy Hart, Ricky Steamboat had a cameo, and
this was the best thing I ever saw.
Every goofball was there.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Acting like a goofball.
Yes.
Who is the damn dude?
The what? Oh,
Ron Simmons.
Farouk.
That's his gimmick. He says, damn.
Farouk showed up and said...
I don't know if I've ever seen him before.
I'm sure you have when you were... He was in the Nation of Domination when you were on the couch.
Okay, all right.
There you go. See how easy that is?
There you go.
So, yeah.
He says, damn, and they like it. This was great comedy. I mean, the key to this was everyone would be having a dance party, and whenever someone new would show up, the music would stop. And everyone would stop, stare, look at the new guy, and he would also dance, and they'd all keep partying, and then someone new would come in, and the music would stop again. And it peaked, I think, when IRS came in dancing with his briefcase.
Yeah.
Everybody found a different place that it would peak.
Yes.
Then we had Chris Benoit, MVP for the U.S. title. MVP got an entire cheerleading squad accompanying him to the ring. Benoit just came out by himself because he's hardcore. So they had a very basic match. It was, Benoit did the best he could with this guy, but it was the MVP, and God bless the guy, but he's green. And in the end, I think it was about 2.5 stars. He hit the diving headbutt and pinned him clean, and that was the end of that. And the highlight to me actually had nothing to do with the match, but had to do with the stupidity of one Michael Cole.
Uh-oh.
Michael Cole in the middle of this match is talking about how there were 70,000 screaming fans in this building.
Yes, he undersold the fans.
I thought, you dipshit. Do you not even understand the point of a wrestling announcer? It's all about lying, okay?
You should have said 90.
Yeah, exaggerate a little bit. You don't have to outright lie and say, there's 800,000 people here in this building, but Jesus Christ, there's 80,000 people and you say 70,000? There were the same... Okay, let me put it this way. If the attendance that they gave was legit, 80,000... There were more people in the building here than there were at WrestleMania 3 when they claimed 93,000. So you're so stupid that you claim 70,000? Tony Schiavone did this once. They were in the Georgia Dome or something, and they had like 34,000 fans or some crazy number, and he claimed like 25 or something completely absurd. And I thought, how can you be so dumb?
I seem to recall someone on a major Monday night show once saying there were hundreds of people watching at home.
And the announcer, it was so obvious the announcers hopped in and said, they said something. I can't remember what they said, or he said hundreds of thousands or something.
Something like that.
The announcer said something like, he means hundreds of millions or something like that.
Yes.
Anyway, so it was a good match.
I liked it a little more than you did for a couple of reasons. First of all, the beginning, the whole story at the beginning was that MVP was out wrestling Chris Benoit. And you would think about that storyline and you would think there's no way they can do it. Well, they pulled it off. And that's a credit to both guys. Second of all, every time Benoit went for one of his finishers, usually the crossface, but also the sharpshooter, every time he went for him, MVP countered it. So it was like MVP, the superstar athlete, has done his homework, and he knows the counters to all of Benoit's finishers. So then Benoit goes for the top rope headbutt, which he never uses as a finisher. It catches MVP off guard, and he gets pinned with it. And I thought, that makes perfect sense.
Wow. You saw way more in that match than I did.
I was paying very close attention. But
Alrighty then.
I kind of liked it. It was all right.
Yeah, it was good.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't overly exciting. I knew who was going to. Well, at least I felt I knew who was going to win. I didn't think they were going to give the guy with the colorful, weird clothes a win over Benoit. So
I actually did, believe it or not.
we both predicted MVP would win.
I just figured they might do that.
I do question why this was not the opener. I guess they just wanted to take the big four matches, kind of the hair match, and just space them out as much as possible, but still.
Yeah.
Having everyone try to follow the ladder match was probably not what I would have done.
I've got to read this email I just got. I'm not making fun of anybody here. I'll just read it. Hello. I was wondering if you saw WrestleMania 23 this past Sunday. If you did, what did you think of it? I was unable to see WrestleMania this year due to work commitments, so I was just curious what a pro wrestling expert such as yourself thought of it. Thanks for your time. Sincerely, Chad.
Did you catch WrestleMania?
I haven't seen it yet.
I'm just going to respond with www.f4wonline.com.
I'm going to send an email to Peter King saying, hey, did you catch the Super Bowl? What did you think? Tony got that.
That was a weird email. Let's get back to the show here.
You watch WrestleMania.
Donald Trump was backstage with Tara Conner, the former Miss USA, who has had some problems. And I can't believe they didn't mention this, but this is the girl that went out drinking and showed her boobs, and she was going to be stripped of the title, but Trump saved her job, and this made Rosie very upset. And so that's where the Rosie-Trump feud began. That ended up resulting really in this whole show here. This hair match.
That is wacky when you think back on the whole thing.
Yeah, but she was back there, and he was on the phone talking to somebody. This was also great. Michael Cole's so fucking stupid that he claims there's 10,000 less people in the building than there are. And meanwhile, Donald Trump is on the phone, and he's like, we're here at WrestleMania in front of 100,000 people, and there's nothing to eat. And I thought, you get this business more than Michael Cole, and you're Donald Trump. So anyway, who should appear behind him but the Boogeyman? And Tara ran off screaming, and Trump just looked back and then continued talking like large black men with worms coming out of their mouths in loincloths are constantly coming up from behind his couches at Trump Towers. And the whole point of it was he wanted a sandwich, and Boogie offered a worm sandwich, and then Trump almost cracked, and they cut away. And I was like, that was awesome.
That was the whole thing. It's like they said, we should have Trump meet the Boogeyman. And they all said, okay, and it went no farther.
That's right. That's as far as they'd gotten as far as thinking of an idea for this. But
yes, this made Trump look like the coolest guy in the world because he did not care about the Boogeyman at all.
No,
he was not scared. He was not offended. He was not bothered. He was just, oh, look, a Boogeyman.
He saw strange men like this every day of his life.
Nothing bothers Donald Trump. He's the Donald.
Then we had the Hall of Fame stuff. They introduced all the folks out there, and that was that. Undertaker versus Dave. They had the biggest entrance in the history of The Undertaker, I think, which would put it high in the ranking for biggest entrance in the history of pro wrestling. He came out with, they had the lights out, they had druids, which were members of the goof class at Ohio Valley. They were dressed as druids and had torches, and I was stunned nobody lit each other on fire.
There's really needed just one guy to get lit on fire and run around the background screaming and waving his arms.
I totally expected that to happen, and it would be somebody like, was Kane there this weekend?
I don't know.
That
would be a prime candidate, though.
So anyway, Undertaker came out and walked the entire way. And this is the length of a football field, mind you. So this was a good 15 minutes of getting some pizza and eating some cookies.
There was a shot where Undertaker had been walking for a while, riding down the ramp, and Then it cut to a shot of Dave in the ring, patiently waiting. And then it cut to a shot looking over Dave's shoulder at The Undertaker. I was like, Jesus Christ, he is still so far away.
Yes. He finally made it, and they began the match. And
I must mention one more thing here about Taker's entrance. We talk about companies using graphics, how you can never have too many graphics. After the Druids and the lightning and his music, here's The Undertaker's silhouette with the light shining behind him and the smoke and the Druids and the chanting and everything. And then a graphic comes over the screen saying, Undertaker. And I thought, if there has ever been a graphic that was not needed, it's that one right there.
Well, everybody needs a graphic.
Everyone gets a graphic. This is fine. Better too many than not enough.
Yes. So they had this match, and they started brawling right at the bell, and the big spot in this match to me is Undertaker, who's 44 or 45 or something like that, and he did his running dive over the top to the floor onto Big Dave, and that was the craziest thing I ever saw.
That scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I remember him doing that years back in an Inferno match, and I believe there were like a bunch of guys there to catch him. Or maybe it was a different match, but he had a bunch of dudes.
He's done it a handful of times. The one I remember, I think it was the Inferno match, there was Kane and there was Vader. So he had 600 or 700 pounds to land on.
Yes. Now, this was just Big Dave, who was torn every muscle in his body about 74 times.
And is almost as old as Taker?
Yeah. I guess Taker would be about almost 40. Actually, he'd be 42 a couple of days ago, in fact, would be his current age. But I think he's actually older than that. I don't...
you think he may have worked his date?
I think the 1965 date is incorrect. But anyway, he's old. But the point is, he's old. And he did that. This fucking guy's 6'10".
He's a giant. He's old. He's breaking down. And by the end of this match, that partly because of that and some other stuff, but I was just in awe of this athlete.
Oh yeah,
he's incredible.
It was a hell of a performance, and Dave more than held up his end of the bargain. And they just worked so hard, and you could tell they were going to have this match even if they both died. And there were a couple places where I was scared that somebody was going to die.
Well, they were just dead after a little while, and I thought, they're going to start doing some of the finishing spots and
drop somebody
on their head.
Yeah,
because a couple of times there, it looked like they were going to drop each other.
Yeah, the Undertaker managed to get him up for the tombstone and looked like that's a heavy man. That's a heavy man after a long match. Mm-hmm. You're asking a 42-year-old man to hold up a 300-pound man after 20 minutes of wrestling and drop him on his head and not kill either of you. And he did it. And got the clean pin with the tombstone, new champion, whole 9 yards. And that was a hell of a match.
It was a hell of a match. There was another moment earlier where Big Dave went for the punches in the corner, which you should just never do to the Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Yes.
It never works.
It's like powerbombing Kidman.
Yes, it never works. So, of course, Taker gets him out for the powerbomb, and that's impressive enough because, as we mentioned, Big Dave is 300 pounds. Then he went for the press powerbomb, and he did not get full extension. This would not have been a full lift in the Olympics or anything, but God damn it, he got him up there. And I was like, this 42-year-old broken-down man just hoisted Big Dave up and threw him down to the ground and got him down safely.
Yeah.
You are the man.
It was a hell of a match. So
And their timing for everything was perfect. And I don't know if I can explain this if you didn't see it, but Dave's got the spot where he's running wild and he goes and shakes the ropes like the Ultimate Warrior. And he went to do that, and Taker did the sit-up behind him, and then Dave turned around and just in awe, and everything was exactly the time it should have happened.
Yeah.
This was just great, and it may have been my favorite match in this show, and if it was yours, that's great.
Anybody that I think everybody should enjoy this match because I don't think that we're going to see a lot of Dave looking this good. This was a magic moment. I think that's the best way to put it.
At one time, was he much better than you guys have described him before?
He was.
This is the best he's ever been.
This was the best match Dave Batista's ever had.
Okay, because I really enjoyed it, and I went into this whole show going, I have to review something I don't really like in the first place. But
when he first got the title in his first title run, he was. I think we just described him as perfectly acceptable main event big man.
Yeah,
he was great, but you could watch him in a main event and you'd be fine with it. And then he got hurt and came back, and then he has been just virtually useless since then.
Just utterly horrible.
So then he comes out tonight, and this was probably the best match he's ever had. It was among Undertaker's best matches. He's had better with guys like Shawn Michaels, but this is probably his best Mania match.
It's pretty impressive. It's two big, slow, pretty much broken guys having a good match like that.
If it wasn't this one, unless you like Taker versus Flair or Hunter or Orton, better than this one.
They had something to prove, and they proved it, and enjoy it, everybody. This was a magic moment, and
it might be their last.
It might. Well, for Dave, I just don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of 4-star Dave matches anytime in the near future. So, then we had. By the way, Nails, I see you're a big fan of Lillian Garcia.
Yeah. She's hot.
She's tasty.
She is.
I wanted to see some higher resolution shots of her, and so I got distracted during the show doing searches on Lillian Garcia.
Well, you didn't miss, however, the segment with Vince, Steph, and Steph's daughter. Supposedly, there was a baby carriage there, and they actually put the camera in the carriage. So when Vince looked in, we saw the baby's eye view of Grandpa Vince.
I thought that was good comedy.
Oh God, this is awesome.
My first thought was this kid's fucked.
Yes, well, he's raised by Hunter and Steph, and his grandpa's Vince McMahon.
Yes.
No amount of money is going to solve that, huh?
No. It was funny, though. Vince was all wacky, and he's telling this child these horrible things he was going to do to Vince McMahon, and Stephanie was appalled. And I thought, this is great comedy.
This is awesome. I demand that Stephanie's daughter become a regular character. And I mean for like 8 years. I want Vince McMahon looking into a baby carriage and making baby noises and talking about doing violent things.
So this poor child doesn't get out of the...
Yes, the child is in the carriage for 8 years.
I see.
That's part of the comedy.
Oh. Ha-ha!
Yeah, see, there you go.
Okay, no. Then we had Sandman, RVD, and Tommy Dreamer and Sabu versus the Vampire, the Count Marquis Von Core, Elijah Burke, and the Teacher. And this was an ECW television match in front of 80,000 people. That's the only way to describe it.
It took me until the end of the match to figure out what the hell the originals were and what the hell New Breed was.
That's good.
Well, I don't think...
Well, the ECW Originals were the old men, and the New Breed was the young, boring guys.
Sure.
And they are original ECW guys? Or not? When I say original, I mean the New Breed is the ones they brought in recently.
Correct. And the Originals were guys who wrestled in the Bingo Hall in South Philly.
Yes. Now,
okay.
I would like to add that the defining moment of this match was when it was over, and Joey Styles said, and I quote, "Oh my God, the ECW Originals won at WrestleMania." My thoughts exactly. I have no idea what happened here. Actually, you know what? I think I may know what happened. RVD may have decided to stay with WWE. That's the only thing that I can figure. Because not only did that team win, but he won.
He won. He pinned Matt Striker clean with a frog splash.
Yes. And that is unlike WWE to take a guy who is threatening to leave and will not re-sign and putting him over. There was 8 men here. Anybody could have been put over on anybody else, and RVD got the pin.
That's true.
So I'll probably know by tomorrow, but I think that there is a possibility that RVD is staying with WWE. But
it could be. It could also be they just had a last-second change of heart and said, you know what, it doesn't matter who wins this.
So why not have Tommy Dreamer get the pin?
Well, there you go.
If you're booking,
I don't have an answer for that.
If you're booking WWE and you're in front of 80,000 people in the biggest pay-per-view of all time, and you think RVD is going to TNA in 3 months, you fucking have him get the pin?
Okay, you're right.
Makes no sense whatsoever. So, anyway, it was, I don't know, star and a half.
There was a point here.
It was just a match.
For future reference, there was a point here where I thought, the good thing about 70,000, or 80,000 as it turns out, the good thing about 80,000 people is that even when there's no heat, there's still at least a decent buzz going around, just from that number of people. So keep that in mind that I thought that at this point.
Sure, that's about to change. We had the hair match, Umaga with Vince against Lashley with Trump, hair versus hair.
Forever just to get it started.
Oh, yeah. They had to have, everyone came out one at a time, Umaga, Vince, Lashley, Trump, Austin, probably a referee, Armando was there. Think about that. Armando Alejandro Estrada was in WrestleMania.
Yes.
It's a major player. So anyway, this was another match where Umaga did a charge and ended up going over the top rope and landing flat back on the floor. And he's a 400-pound man.
Yeah, that scared me. That was the one. It made a loud noise.
Where you just heard
brutal.
a big
splat.
A big splat. Yeah, and then Lashley dove towards him, and Umaga got out of the way, and Lashley went through the middle rope and landed flat on the floor, and I thought he was dead. And he also did a big dive off the top into a shoulder block, and I thought, God, I was just waiting for him to tear a muscle or something.
Just snap.
Just break something.
Just his arm falls off.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking throughout the show, too? I was just thinking, this would be the show for Vince to do a big double cross. And, have Lashley lay down.
And screw Trump.
Trump has to be shaved. I was thinking about that for a week, so I didn't want to mention it because, kind of...
You didn't want to spoil it.
Not so much I didn't want to spoil it, but it was just, I figured it was such an absurd idea because there would be lawsuits and all sorts of crazy shit, but it was in the back of my head all night long. I'm like, God, just what if? What if? And what if, I was thinking, okay, well, Trump's he had to have slid Bobby an extra $2,000 just to make sure you shoot on this fat Samoan if he tries something here, something crazy like that. But anyway, it went according to plan. Nobody got killed. They had a ref bump. The ref, of course, being Steve Austin. He got thumbed, and he took a hell of a bump. And for those of you that don't know why Steve Austin's not wrestling anymore, he's got a neck so bad that a bad bump, he could die. And he took a bad bump here. He took a hard bump on his head and neck and then fell out of the ring and landed face first. And he actually took 2 hard bumps. And Shane McMahon ran in to interfere and did the coast-to-coast drop kick with the garbage can. And anyway, the finish saw Austin give Umaga the stunner after Umaga tried another thumb spot. And then Lashley climbed on and got the pin. Big pop. And then afterwards, it was time for the haircutting. That's what everybody came for, and Vince tried to flee and failed, and it was just classic Vince McMahon. They strapped him in, they shaved him very quickly. It was
this was the fastest. They took the electric trimmers to him, and there was 2 men. It was Lashley and Trump doing the clipping. Still, this was the fastest clipping I've ever seen in a wrestling haircut.
It was like an execution. It was like, okay,
zip, 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 bald.
We're going to execute you at midnight, and when 12 o'clock comes along, we're just sticking the needle in you. We ain't talking about it. We ain't going to have a debate. We're not going to have you...
At 12 o'clock, we pull the switch. At 12 and 30 seconds, you are dead.
Yes. They strapped him to the chair, they grabbed the razors, and they just started cutting. It was Lashley on one side and Trump on the other. They buzzed him, and then they lathered him up and took the straight razor, which scared the shit out of me, and they razored him up. And, Vince was wacky and fell down and had shaving cream all over him. And he did not have the freak out to the level I was expecting.
I have to say it was kind of a letdown. I don't know if I had just built it up too much in my mind.
I had. I can tell you that right now.
What were you expecting?
I'll play it in a minute what I was expecting.
While Brian's looking for that, I do have to say there was a great moment here as some craziness was going on. I think Austin was beating up Shane after the match. Meanwhile, Vince McMahon was trying to sneak away. And he was trying to skulk up the ramp, and halfway through he turned back and laughed like, ha ha, I've outsmarted you, I'm not at ringside anymore. And then Lashley started to give chase.
That's
where
I thought Ray was going to come out, by the way.
Well, that would have been a bad idea just because there were probably a lot of people watching this show just for this match, and the fewer people outside of the 5 involved, the better. I thought even having Shane come out was too much.
Yeah, but wouldn't you think if all these people are watching, you'd want to get a couple more faces on screen to try and make stars?
You're just going to confuse people. They're going to say, who's the short guy in the mask?
Well, that's what the announcers are for.
Well, I think it was just fine without Ray. But anyway, the point being, it never occurred to Vince McMahon that Bobby Lashley would try to run after him. And Lashley is faster than Vince. and there was a great moment where Vince looked over his shoulder and saw Lashley coming and screamed, and Lashley brought him back to the ring for the haircut, and everything was great.
That's right. Now, Nails, I can't remember what happened that caused Vince to go so insane. Perhaps Vince remembers.
I think this is the one where DX rigged his car so the axle fell off.
That's right. So they destroy Vince McMahon's limo, and this was Vince's freak out.
I think I hear it. Is that anger to crying already?
What was that?
Is that anger to crying
yes.
in those 5 seconds?
We've dissected this a million times, but the genius of that freak out is how he goes from sobbing to screaming like that.
To sobbing again. It was the funniest fucking thing I ever saw, and I thought that this was going to top it, and I'm hoping that maybe tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Maybe I'll have the freak out tomorrow. There's still
sure.
hope.
I'm hoping for a freak out on Raw.
But that freak out, Nails, you had to see it. He was climbing out of the limo, he's banging the roof with one hand. He grabs like one ear with his hand and sticks his other hand out to the side and screams to the sky.
Someone's got to put that on YouTube. Oh, God, that was awesome. So anyway, this was great. He got shaved. Everybody went home happy. Oh, we forgot the main part of it at the end. Trump took a stunner, and it was the worst one ever.
Sort of.
I'm trying to figure out if it was. Let's see. Who's taking a horrible stunner?
We discussed Linda McMahon on the ride home.
Linda, Vince, and Trump now have taken the worst stunners in the history of mankind, and this was way up there in the running.
This is a strong candidate.
It was so bad I actually initially thought that it was unplanned.
It was a shoot.
Because Trump gives him this stunner, which is just absolutely hideous, and Trump falls down, and Austin got the fuck out of that ring so fast, and he was going up the ramp laughing. And I thought, okay, something had to have been done here. Or maybe he just saw a replay on the Titantron and went,
saw how horrible it was.
I got paid $1 million for that bullshit. But, yeah, it was hideous. Worst stunner I ever saw in my life.
Without question.
So bad that when they did the post-show video package, they had to show clips of it, but they edited this 1 second stunner into 3 1 millimeter or 1 millisecond
clips. Yes,
clips.
There was Austin.
There was a foot.
There was Austin standing in front of Trump. There was Austin and Trump going down, and there was Austin standing with Trump on the ground.
That was
all other motion was cut out.
Oh, God. And then the show came to a screeching halt. Melina and Ashley in a lumberjill match. Nails, go ahead.
Well, all I wanted to have was HD.
There were some fine-looking women there. That's true.
There was some hot women in there, and then, I saw those hot women come out, and then they bring out, what is she pushing 70-pound Ashley?
Ashley is not looking good these days.
She's not our favorite. Definitely not mine.
You know what's scary is one of the girls out there was Michelle McCool, who was hospitalized for like 21 days because she ended up with an eating disorder because she was trying to get too skinny and literally almost died. And Ashley was out there tonight looking even skinnier than she was. And that was when I thought, oh boy, this ain't good. Just eat some food, young lady. You don't need to. She was real skinny, and she was real horrible. And God bless the girl. When the match was over, she was almost crying. And I thought, she has to know she just had the worst match on the biggest show of all time by a wide margin.
Yeah.
She out-shittied Khali and Kane.
Oh, by far. And I earlier I mentioned that the good thing about having 80,000 people was you couldn't have a quiet building. I was mistaken.
They
went dead.
Utterly silent.
That was scary quiet.
You could have heard 80,000 pins drop.
You could have.
I've only seen a crowd that quiet once. It was at a Husky game, and there's 70,000 people, and literally you could hear anybody in the whole stadium. But that's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah, and I mean this is always the death spot. This match.
Well, that's why this match was on the show to die.
Yeah, the second to last match on the show is always utterly dead. But it's not always bad.
It does not have to be like this. No,
this was just awful. And Melina reversed a cradle and pinned her, so Melina retained the title. And all the girls threw her back in, and it broke down into a battle royal, and she left, and just bad.
The only good thing about this was that as the girls were all fighting, Mickie James, who was wearing jeans, was just kind of walking around.
Yeah.
Just saying, no, I don't want to fight you. No, I'll just kind of throw a punch your way. Okay, how about over here? No, nothing really going on. She's just not
the funny thing was when they first started the Battle Royal, I was actually looking for her because she's looking fine this evening. First thing I see is she's adjusting her top. And the second thing I see is she's pulling her pants up a little bit because they start to fall down. And it's like she's just adjusting her wardrobe.
She is not getting involved.
No, not in any way.
No part of this malarkey.
And, yeah, that was it. By the way, there was a pre-show match that we didn't see because it was a pre-show match. But it was Ric Flair and Carlito beating Hurricane and somebody else. Chavo Guerrero. And I don't know how it was.
I'm sure it was fine. They also made it a lumberjack match just as an excuse to get 50 guys on the show.
Oh, yes. So that was that.
But, and you should, I don't know if you were in the room or if you were eating pizza, but when they show these 50 men walking down the ramp who knew they were just there to do this appearance and then go back, and that was their WrestleMania, they were not thrilled.
Well, they should have been fucking thrilled to even be there. So then we had, I should note that there were two polls on this show. One about who was going to win Undertaker and Dave, and it was 82% in favor of The Undertaker. Sucks to be Dave.
I thought when that happened, they had the graphic on the screen with each guy on the screen staring each other down, and when it came up with that great disparity, Dave's graphics sort of shrunk.
It's gotten really small.
Yes.
And then the Cena-Shawn poll was 59% in favor of Cena, so not stupid fans tonight.
No.
I will say that. So main event, Shawn and Cena, they had a hell of a little match. I thought it was very good, probably 4 stars. I think really all of the major matches here were probably, if you want to give them 4, 4.25, whatever, go to town. Take your pick, best match. But started out very slow, And the highlight was Cena grabbed a headlock, and Shawn said, "Take it easy, baby."
Just 20 seconds in.
He was way too excited, and Shawn had to calm him down.
We were commenting on this as they were staring it down. We were like, for John Cena, this is WrestleMania. For Shawn Michaels, this is Sunday.
This is Sunday where he missed church. He's feeling a little remorseful right now. But, I mean, they went out there, and Nails, I know that some of the match you kind of were bored by, but one thing you have to realize is Cena's horrible. He's a little better than Big Dave, but the fact that Shawn Michaels got a 4-star match out of him, this match had to be idiot-proofed. I mean, idiot-proofed.
Yeah.
I mean, their high spots were like, okay, I'll duck 2 clotheslines, and then you clothesline me. That was the extent of it.
Yes.
Nothing high risk or anything like. Well, I mean, there was some high risk stuff. Shawn did an acai moonsault and nearly broke his back on the table, but
and it was Cena's back.
It was an idiot-proof match, and the first half was pretty slow. They actually worked in the corner for like 3 minutes.
There was a great point where Shawn took Cena to the corner and said, "Now you have to fight out." And he made Cena fight for like 5 minutes just to get out of the corner.
Yeah,
they were chopping and hitting over and over again.
Oh,
they were. And I'm sure, probably for Tony, for some other people, it was repetitive, but I was watching it thinking, this is just good. It's just like, you don't take this concept, blow through it in 30 seconds and move on to something else. That's how you do a really meaningless 5-minute TV match. You make it a main event by making the struggle to get out of the corner something important.
And they came in after the women's match, and there was no heat, and the whole story is it started out slow, it was quiet at the beginning, and by the end they had the place going nuts, and that's Shawn Michaels is a great worker.
There you go.
I can't. Cena was hated. I mean, they did the deal where every time Shawn hit a chop, the people would go woo or yay or whatever, and every time Cena hit a chop, they would just boo him out of the building. It was the old yay boo deal. And, they hated the guy. What can you do? But he tried, and he worked his ass off, and he had the best WrestleMania main event he may ever have, for all I know.
Probably.
And, he was ready to cry afterwards. He got the win with the STFU and tapped him out in the middle of the ring and then dedicated the match to his dad. And it was a real good match, great main event. And great match to cap off a very memorable show. So overall, I give that match a thumbs up and the show a thumbs up.
There was a point about 15, 20 minutes in where I was thinking, this is good, but this is nowhere near as good as Undertaker and Dave, and that cannot possibly happen. And right about then, they did a sequence where like Cena went for the FU, and they did about 15 reversals off it, and I thought, okay, now this is great. And from that point on, it's like neck and neck with that and Taker and Dave.
And it kept getting better. That was the whole deal. It's one of those. I've seen so many matches like that. It's mostly in Japan, a main event where you'll watch it, and for like 15 minutes you're like, yeah, it's good, but where is this match of the year Dave's talking about? I don't see it. And then all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, you're like, that was the best match I ever saw.
Yes.
I think, for me, it was the first